What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the best Ice Sorceress build in Path of Exile 2. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of the setup, then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both the mid game and end game. And then finally, we will go over the passive tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what Atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for this build on the website, then click my link in this video's description or the pinned comment. This setup's main playstyle is built around putting up a frost wall, and then blasting enemies with the ice comet. And as the cold penetration and cold exposure is incredibly OP in the endgame, so this build works amazing on big groups of enemies, where we simply use 2 skill combo and cover our entire screen with the frost projectiles that explode and do massive amounts of damage. On top of this, we are going to be using nodes like Now and Again, Footprint in the Sand and many more, to completely reset our cooldowns so we can basically spam our frost walls and speed farm through every single content in the game. Then on top of this, for our defense we are going to be focusing on the energy shield and its recharge rate, so we could get unlimited amount of shields and much more. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Sorceress, and our Ascendancy is the Chronomancer. Then for the first skill we have the Frost Wall with the support gem called the Inspiration, Fount of Mana and Fount of Blood. Then second we get the Comet with the spell Cascade, Arcane Tempo and Unleash. Then next we got the Cold Snap with Magnified Effect, Consider Casting and Inevitable Critical. Next we have the Frost Bomb with the Fast Forward, Second Wind and Ingenuity. Next up we have the Lightning Warp with just the Shock Siphon. Next we got the Temporal Rift with the Clarity. Then for the last ones we have the Cast on Freeze with the Impetus, Comet and the Spell Echo. And finally for our last one we are using the Arctic Armor with the Glaciation and Vitality. Most of this setup is structured around using the Frost Wall and the Comet to delete enemies in seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next we also have a leveling build, in case if you are starting your journey from level 0, and you wanna use it up until about level 25, where you should start getting our most important skills. So first off we have the Spark with the Unleash and the Control Destruction. Then next we have the Flame Wall with the Fortress. And finally we are using the Frost Bomb with the Magnified Effect and the Concentrated Effect. This is your basic setup up until you get our build's 2 most important skills. In the early stages of progression, we are using the Spark and the Flame Wall as our main ability combo, as they are very powerful, especially at the beginning. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell damage node. And our goal is to first of all focus on the spell damage nodes and only afterwards on the defense. So let's get the raw power and the Path of Winter. Then next let's go to the left and take the Exploit the Elements. Then from here we keep on moving forwards, and here, where the path splits, you only want to take both of these. So the Climate Change and the Overexposure. Then now keep moving forwards until the end and get all of these. Then from here we now want to move to the right side and get only the Damage and the Freeze build-up node. And then from here we can go back all the way from here where we began and unlock all the defense nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority as they're the most important to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply want to fulfill your attribute requirements for the gear and skill gems, and then spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more intelligence. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Footprints in the Sand, then second get the Apex of the Moment, then third Now and Again, and then finally select the Circular Heartbeat. In PoE 2 earning skill points take a lot of hard work, so it will be very smart not to spend your points recklessly. Of course, you can refine your passive points later, but only at a cost, so following a specific setup is extremely useful. If you are following this build, then make sure to not to deviate from it, as some of the decisions that I made might not make sense at first, but is going to pay off later. So feel free to use the exact same path as I have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the tree. Next up we have our Atlas passives. And the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start, we wanna first of all get to the left side, and then get all of these, and then keep going down until you get this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we circle back a little, and this time keep going up until we get the second keystone called the Unstoppable Energies. And then from this point and onwards, you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. But then on top of this, we have even more passives, which in order that you unlock them doesn't really matter, as long as you do this in this exact path. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses. And then on top of this, we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup. And then finally our breach setup. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the attuned wand with the mana drain, and for the bonus stats we want extra lightning damage, increased spell damage, max mana, intelligence, and more levels to all cold spells. Also we got an offhand called the advanced woven focus with the energy shield, and for more we want increased cold damage, max energy shield, intelligence, and increased critical hit chance. Then for the helmet we have the advanced feather tiara with the energy shield, and for more we want max life, accuracy, cold and fire resistance. Then for chest we have the advanced altar robe with the energy shield. And for bonus stats we are using the max life, more spirit, life regen per second, and chaos resistance. Then for belt we have the fine belt with the faster flask charges per second. And for more we want max life, max energy shield, cold resistance, and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the advanced interested gloves with the energy shield. And for more we want max energy shield, max life, and lightning resistance. Then for boots we're using the advanced feather sandals with the energy shield. And for more we want increased movement speed, max life, fire, and lightning resistance. Then for our first ring we got the sapphire ring with the cold resistance. And for more we want adds to lightning damage, evasion, and increased mana regen. While on the second one we have the topaz ring with the lightning resistance. And for more we want increased cast speed and life regen per second. And then finally for the amulet we got the lapis amulet with the intelligence. And for more we want accuracy, max mana, more spirit, and chaos resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Then next we have the runes. During early item progression, most gear is socketted with resistant runes like the Desert Rune, Glacial Rune, or the Storm Rune. However, once your elemental resistances have been capped, and elemental resistant runes are no longer necessary, then you want to opt in to increase your maximum life with body runes or consider socketing a soul core. So on our weapon we are using the Iron Rune, then on our helmet we have the Glacial Rune, and then lastly on the rest of our equipment we are using the Storm Rune. And as far as getting this gear goes, by far the best way to get better gear in the campaign is to check the vendor in the town each time you level up, as vendors can change their offerings based on your level, so this is the best way to find upgrades. And then after level 65, you just want to keep continuing repeating your maps until tier 16. And again, for more in-depth tutorial, check out my gearing guide video. And then on top of this, we need to quickly look into the charms. Charms are incredibly useful, as by having the right one equipped at the right time can save you from dying. If you are struggling with certain bosses, then look into what damage type they are using, and then use that specific charm to increase your resistance. For me personally, I like to use the stone charm for stuns, because if we get stuck then we die. Then second we want the amethyst charm for chaos damage, as it's pretty hard to get it from the other places. And then finally for the last one we want to go with the ruby charm. But as I said, which one you choose will entirely depend on the enemies that you are fighting. So feel free to experiment and mix and match. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our main rotation and the highest DPS combo is to first of all put up a frost wall, and then blast down your enemies with the comet. Then also we can occasionally use the frost bomb before casting the comet, but this is only required for the rare sword bosses. And then finally we can also use the lightning warp to call the enemies and then use the temporal rift to reposition behind the safety of our frost wall. On top of this, from time to time I like to use the cold snap, but I found that it's often best to keep the boss frozen while I continue to spam the comet, than just rather using the spam damage, but again it's up to you. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments below, If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my top 3 best builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds, so click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.